Rockets215 here, and I'm coming at you with a new video. This video will be about the different types of Cold War Ushankas of the Romanian infantry. Mainly focusing on the 70s and 80s, but this video will go into the many differences, similarities of different types of Ushankas worn by the infantry, as well as some of the reasonings why, perhaps. As a collector of Romanian Cold War, I have had some serious questions regarding why there are several differences in just infantry Ushankas. Many other collectors of the Cold War period who also collect Romanian have similar questions, and I've been over the years I've discussed with them, and we've been just slowly trying to put the puzzle together of what everything means. Romanian is very difficult to figure out, because you can really only go off of pictures, images, and maybe try to find a couple people to talk to who were in the military, but it's relatively more difficult, especially given some of the military rules where images weren't allowed to be taken very often, or especially be released to the West. So most of the pictures we have to go through are from the Revolution in 1989, because, well, there were no rules anymore at that point, as well as there was some Westerners in there as well, taking images and videos. And not to mention it's a lot of very good colored photos, so it gives us a good opportunity to study and try to figure this all out. So what I'll be doing is going one by one with each different model of Ushanka here, pointing out the differences and similarities between each one. I will also be presenting photo evidence with each detail as I point them out to go along with it. And hopefully this video will finally reveal some of the secrets behind the differences in Ushankas that we see on the images. The first type of Ushanka I will be going over is probably the second most common type I've seen in pictures, and what I understand from what I've seen and studied is it's probably was worn more in the 70s and early 80s. And as you see, what I've found is there's a later version that replaced it, but we'll go over that later. So to go over some characteristics of it, it is dark gray with the brown wool in the middle and on top. This dark gray fish fur is very short, stubby, and this one is very thick and just it's just very, very thick and doesn't mold to your head very well, especially when you wear a helmet, as so many soldiers often did, as they'd wear it under their helmet. And this one just doesn't really conform to the helmet very well. And here's what it looks like with the flaps down. There is a lot of material at the top, and I have worn these under the helmet, flaps down. It does not fit very well. This is just a very large and thick Ushanka. From this view you can see the very greenish brown wool. This will continue throughout all the different types of Ushankas, and in fact it's the same exact wool as used on all of the military uniforms. So the inside of the Ushanka, it's put together in 4 parts, in 4 triangle parts, and it comes together in sort of a cone at the middle. It has the typical, very Eastern Bloc style of having quilting in the inside of all the different squares. However, unlike many other Ushankas, such as the Soviet type, it doesn't square off at the top and then become flat. It just sewn together in the middle into a kind of a cone shape, which is distinctive with all Romanian Ushankas. None of them square off, at least for the infantry types. None of them square off. They all come together, and so they make top kind of cone-ish and make it stick up more. And so you won't have the ear flaps sitting flat over the top like many of the others. In the Eastern Bloc, you'll have them sticking up in sort of an angle. That's very distinctive of Romanian type. You can, despite knowing and understanding the colors, you can just look at the outline of it on someone's head and know it's Romanian just by the construction of that. On another note, the inside of this Ushanka is very different from the others, and from many others I've seen just in general from the Eastern Bloc. There is a large white tag that has a number 59 on it for size, and on the other side there's a different stamp. No clue what that stamp means, but that's it. There is no standard rectangular stamp that has made in Bucharest on it and with a date. So the date of this Ushanka is unknown, which is unfortunate. The next Ushanka here is one that's particularly interesting, as it has characteristics that stand out differently from the other two. And as a result, amongst collectors, this Ushanka has produced several questions as to what its origin is and to who wears it. Now, the similarities with this and the others are, again, we have typical Romanian gray fur, and then we have the brown-green wool, which is continuity between all of them. This is what makes up the middle. Same with the interior of it. The inside of the Ushanka has the same quilting pattern that goes up into four corners that goes up into a cone. This one has the common type of stamping and has the rectangular stamping here that says, Bucharesti, made in Bucharest, with a 1981 date on it. Now, the big characteristics of this different is the type of fish fur it has. It is not as short as the other, but it's not long either. It has a shiny sort of finish to it, so as you can see, some areas are darker and some are lighter depending on how the light's hitting it. And it is extremely soft. I mean, you could make a pillow out of this. That's how soft it is. The softest fish fur I've ever found in any Ushanka on Earth, except for maybe some commercial modern types for civilians or something. So the questions are, why would this be made? Why are none of the other ones like this? To answer these questions, we have to look at the photo evidence. Now, for years I thought I only had a couple images of this Ushanka being used in the field, until I took a way closer look at all my collection. That's when I realized that this Ushanka was actually worn quite a bit more often than I ever thought. Now, here are the few images in my collection that I thought were the only ones showing this Ushanka. And as you'll notice, everyone in these is Patriotic Guard. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Patriotic Guard was like the Romanian Socialist National Guard. It was mainly older civilians used in times of war if the country was ever invaded. And they wore a little bit different uniform than everyone else. It was all the same color, but the jacket was different. Well, that's a whole nother story. But in many of the images of them, they're wearing this type of Ushanka. So, of the few that I had, I thought that this would be a Patriotic Guard only Ushanka. But then again, once I took a closer look at everything, I realized this was actually worn by the regular military as well, alongside the other two. The final Ushanka here is one that gives me particularly great excitement. It is probably the most common Ushanka worn by the infantry, especially enlisted soldiers, in the Revolution, which is where I get most of my images from, where we can study this the most. And as the Revolution took place in December of 1989, it's very, very late in the communist era. So the fact that I've seen this Ushanka so many times in those images makes me, and maybe not as much in the earlier images, makes me believe that this one is a particularly later type of Ushanka. Probably seen in the later 80s, but it could have also been just an 80s type, been issued along with the others. The characteristics of this one that differ is specifically the type of fish fur again. This type is a longer, shaggier type of gray fur. In fact, I love the type of fur that's on here. It's just this very shag carpet type. It's not nearly as soft as the other one. That is a whole nother story. But this is pretty soft too, and it's just thicker, and I believe this one will be probably really comfy to wear and very warm. Another characteristic of it is how it's put together. Again, we have the same type of thick green-brown wool. However, the inside is not nearly as just cube thick, unmovable as the other two. This one actually is a lot more malleable and softer in general, so it'll form to your head better and actually fit under your helmet better. Now this particular type, there are some different construction issues with it, which may be a sign of the times, but we'll start here with the interior. The interior is the exact same as the others. Comes together in 4 parts. At the top of the cone, it has the rectangular stamp badge with Bucharest, made in Bucharest, except this time we have a 1989 stamp. This is the final year of production. This is the end of the line here. Some of the characteristics here may be indicative of that time. Another here is when we fold down the flaps in the back, the flaps don't fold all the way down near the front. The person who sewed these together sort of sewn a quarter of the way up from the bottom, the front flap panel, and so the flaps won't go evenly down all the way. Perhaps that could have been remedied in the field, resewn, but that's the way it is. Construction of it isn't terrible. This is good, still good quality materials here, and it's sewn together well. It's just some of the parts that are sewn maybe were done really quickly. Now again, this one is most commonly seen in images, worn by almost everybody in the Revolution who was a conscript. So just the fact that I've seen this, that I have here the 1989 date and this type and all the same type in the pictures, really has made me believe that this is a specific, very, very late communist era Ushanka. So late 80s. I've also seen other examples of this dated 1988. So this may very well have only shown up in the last handful of years of Ceausescu's reign in the communist era. And on a side note that's actually rather interesting, here's a couple images where all 3 Ushankas are being worn at the same exact time. And that concludes a look at all the different types of infantry Ushankas of the Romanian army during the Cold War. I hope you learned something. I know I did the whole process of studying, especially as a collector. It's great to finally figure out a number of these mysteries that have been sort of haunting me and several others for years now. Thank you for watching.